Once again, welcome. And we'll delve straight into what we have for today. And I will be welcoming the panelists for just 10 minutes briefing on the economic community of West African states. However, before I welcome the panelists, I would like to really emphasize the reason why we are here. Our topic today is understanding the economic community of West African states through citizens' perspective. A lot of persons don't know about ECOWAS. I know that if you try to put a question across to some people here, the last time they probably heard about ECOWAS might be in their secondary school or university when they did GST courses or social studies and humanities. But ECOWAS, as far as West Africa is concerned, it's a very important sub-regional body. Just as a way of introduction, ECOWAS means Economic Community of West African States, and it was established in May 28, to be precise, 1975. And that goes to mean that by May 28, ECOWAS will be 50 years. So May 28 marks 5 decades of ECOWAS existence in West Africa. So ECOWAS has several mandates, and these mandates include trade liberalization. ECOWAS has the mandate of promoting human rights. ECOWAS has the mandate of promoting security and peace within West African states. But the question really is, has ECOWAS been able to achieve this mandate, these objectives? Our research team at the Center for Community and Oceanic Law conducted a research. We did a survey, and we asked people a couple of questions about the effectiveness of the economic community of West African states. We got several responses. And to our greater surprise, some people do not even know that ECOWAS exists. Some people do not know about the specialized institutions of ECOWAS, the Authority of Heads of States, the ECOWAS Parliament, just generally the bodies through which ECOWAS operates. So the essence of today's webinar is to discuss the economic community of West African states through citizens' perspective. So we're going to be looking at the responses that we got from the survey, and we'll be forging conversations around these responses. And I believe that our panelists are very much ready to attend to the questions that we'll be asking them, of course, during the panel, the question and answer session. So I will be yielding the floor to our panelists for a 10 minutes briefing. However, before I do that, I would first introduce the first panelist on our list. So I will be reading the profile of Professor Chidi Odinkalu, and afterwards I will yield the floor to him to just briefly talk to us for 10 minutes. Professor Chidi Anselm Odinkalu is a Nigerian human rights activist, a lawyer, writer, and a professor of practice in international human rights law at the Fletcher School, and currently chairs the Truth, Justice, and Peace Commission, a transitional justice initiative established to address the crisis of violence and agitation in the state of Southeast Nigeria. He previously chaired Nigeria's National Human Rights Commission and served on the panel of eminent persons that negotiated the return of the Gambia to the Commonwealth in 2017. Odinkalu has acted as counsel in international human rights litigations before Africa's regional human rights courts and tribunals, and was involved in the creation of the African Court of Human and People's Rights. He's associated with several advocacy initiatives for the protection of human rights, including the International Refugees' Rights Initiative. His research focuses on contemporary challenges of multilateralism in regional systems in development, human rights, and governance. He is the co-author of Too Good to Die, Third Term and the Myth of the Indispensable Man in Africa. Please, ladies and gentlemen, with a clap emoji, let's welcome our panelist, Professor Chidi Odinkalu. Thank you. Professor Chidi, you have the floor.
Hi, good day, Madam. I hope you will allow me to call you Madam Esther, because if I say Madam Allwell, it will look like the world is perfect.
That's fine.
Thank you very much. Good day, colleagues, wherever you may be from, and particularly I see Professor Nabulele. I also see my Oga Chief Ejime. This is, of course, the Golden Jubilee year of ECOWAS, and this conversation takes place at a time when ECOWAS is in a profound crisis, existential crisis. At the turn of the millennium, ECOWAS had 16 members, as a matter of fact. Indeed, at the point of the revision of the ECOWAS Treaty and the adoption, therefore, in 1993 of the revised ECOWAS Treaty, there were 16 members. Since the turn of the millennium, Mauritania denounced the ECOWAS Treaty with effect from, I believe, December 2000. That reduced the community to 15. And then, of course, with effect from the 29th of January this year, the community was reduced in one swoop to 12 members. In other words, since the turn of the millennium, in 25 years, basically, ECOWAS has been reduced by 25% of its members, from 16 to 12. And as I've told some of the foreign ministers, there was a meeting of the ECOWAS Council of Ministers in Accra last week to discuss precisely these issues. Some of the issues arising from the divorce into the ECOWAS and the ECOWAS 12 and the AES 3. To lose one member state can be an accident. To lose 4 member states is absolutely reckless. Something is wrong, and it's got to be addressed. Whatever it is, what we now have now, ECOWAS was something unique in Africa at the time that the ECOWAS Treaty was adopted in May 1975. Now, why is that so? And the center is a center within the law faculty, and therefore it's important to back up a little bit. ECOWAS is a regional integration institution. Regional integration institutions, of course, regional institutions in international law exist under the authority of Article 52, one of the UN Charter, and Article 24 of the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, which I'm not going to go into the history of GATT, but GATT is an accident of a treaty in many ways. What was supposed to exist was the ITO Treaty, the Havana Convention, but of course the ITO Treaty failed following its adoption. And the GATT Treaty, which was supposed to be a temporary arrangement for the negotiation of tariffs across traders in international law, governing basically the application of the MFN principle, the most favored nation principle, then became a situational convention that subsequently therefore survived and has lasted quite a while since then, and is now being complemented, of course, by the Marrakesh agreements, the package of deals that are now constitute the WTO treaties. But that's not the issue here. The point is that under the GATT Treaty, and of course, Article 1.1 of GATT constitutionalizes in international economic law the MFN principle, the most favored nation principle. Now, there are exceptions to the most favored nation principle, beginning with, health emergencies, national security exceptions. Probably the biggest known exception is the regional integration exception under Article 24 of the GATT Treaty. The regional integration exception is what really authorizes the existence of ECOWAS, and therefore ECOWAS started off as a regional economic arrangement. But why was it unique in Africa at the time that it was started? Because it was not only an institution of the sort. You also had bodies like the East African Community. But now, if you took the East African Community, or indeed if you looked at CEMAC or any of the others, what was unique was every one of those, what characterized all of them was that they were post-colonial arrangements. They were successors to the amalgamations that informed colony in Africa. ECOWAS was unique because it transcended the parochialisms of colony. So the East African Community was for entities that were colonized by whom? By the United Kingdom. So it was Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania. CEMAC, colonized mostly by France. ECOWAS was unique in that it had the presence of countries that wanted to transcend those colonial arrangements. And so it had countries colonized by the United Kingdom, by France, by Portugal, and indeed it also had countries that survived as UN mandates and trust territories, such as Togo, for instance. And now, ECOWAS then went through a crisis in 1989-90, following the events in Liberia, the deployment of ECOMOG. Before that, before it got to that point, ECOWAS went through phases in its evolution. The first phase, of course, was factor mobility. What are the factors of production, movement of persons, and all of those things. And the first phase of ECOWAS was the evolution of the Protocol on Free Movement of Persons. And the second phase was the evolution of ECOWAS into a collective security arrangement with the 1981 Protocol on Mutual Defense. And the third was the evolution of ECOWAS into a governance institution, or an institution that was concerned with governance. And these ramifications of ECOWAS, from factor mobility, strictly a GATT 24 entity, into a collective security arrangement, and then a governance arrangement, took some time. And following the events leading to the deployment of ECOMOG in 1989, there was a review of the ECOWAS Treaty to integrate all of these into one arrangement. That was led by General Gowon and resulted ultimately in the revised ECOWAS Treaty of 1993. And it's interesting that we are looking at this today from the perspective of citizens, because the Gowon Committee report actually made precisely that point, that ECOWAS should be transformed from an association of heads of state to a relationship of citizens. So from a sovereign arrangement to a constructivism arrangement for the creation of a West African regional space and identity. Now, that is really what is at stake currently, therefore, with, when that was accomplished, you then had the evolution of the institutions proceeding along the lines leading to the evolution for emergence, for instance, of the ECOWAS Court of Justice as a formidable institution in the region. However, now, the other thing was that ECOWAS was both an Atlantic association of states and a Sahelian association of states. Now, with the emergence of the AES and the denunciation of the ECOWAS Treaty by the AES member states, ECOWAS has ceased to be a Sahelian association of states. ECOWAS is now an Atlantic association of states. That creates exposures of security that we've got to take very seriously. It means that ECOWAS pre-existing Sahelian buffer is gone. And actually, those of you who wish to take notice may wish to know that since the AES states exited, what you now have is an escalation of violence in the northern borders of the states now in the ECOWAS. So wherever you look, from parts of Senegal to Nigeria, violence in the ECOWAS countries, the Atlantic ECOWAS countries, has increased. And let me end on this note, because the ECOWAS countries are now negotiating the question of transition and how, on what terms that happens. And in my view, there was a missed opportunity. The AES, the Liptako-Gruma Charter, which establishes the AES, was adopted in September 2023. That was 4 months before the countries formally indicated their desire, in accordance with Article 91 of the Revised ECOWAS Treaty, to seek to denounce the treaty. There was ample time between the adoption of the Liptako-Gruma Charter and the January 2024 for ECOWAS to take steps to address the issue. Because once the Liptako-Gruma Charter was adopted, what's the problem, by the way? It's Article 6 of the Liptako-Gruma Charter. Article 6 of the Liptako-Gruma Charter, under which the AES exists, created the AES as a collective security arrangement within another collective security arrangement. That was untenable. All that had to happen was for the ECOWAS states to refer that matter to the ECOWAS court. They failed to do so. If they had referred that matter to the ECOWAS court, we would not have had the dissolution of ECOWAS into an Atlantic association of 12 states instead of 15 states that we have now. And secondly, they did not have any contingency plans for what would happen. It is now that the states have left ECOWAS that we are discussing contingency plans, which says that the states, our leaders in ECOWAS, did not believe in the community. And that is the note on which I want to end, because I'm sure that we are going to return to have some conversations and there'll be questions to ask and answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for that beautiful introduction. I mean, it was really beautiful, outlining the history and the transition of ECOWAS. And I believe someone raised his hand to ask question, but at this point, we'll not be entertaining any question. We'll push it to the question and answer session after the briefing by the panelists. So we'll go over to our next panelists. We are privileged to have Justice Dr. Richmond Osei-Hwere here with us. Justice Dr. Richmond is a justice of the High Court of Ghana, and outside of the courtroom, he is the supervising judge of the Accra West and Accra North area in the Greater Accra region of the Republic of Ghana, amongst other duties in the judiciary. Prior to his elevation to the High Court bench in July 2016, he served as a principal state attorney at the Office of the Attorney General. Justice Osei-Hwere has served as an adjunct senior lecturer in the Faculty of Law, Kwame Nkrumah, University of Science and Technology. He still serves as an adjunct senior lecturer at the Ghana School of Law. He holds a PhD in law degree from the University of Aberdeen, Scotland. Ladies and gentlemen, with a clap emoji, please let's welcome Justice Richmond Osei-Hwere. You're welcome, sir. You have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your kind introduction, Madam Esther Orwell. Yes, I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and it's a privilege for me to be part of this August gathering. Yes, it's always a privilege to participate in ECOWAS activities, through the ECOWAS law conferences, among other activities. It's always a privilege because it's a learning process for me. Yes, and Professor Chidi Odinkalu has given the historical background where we came from as a regional body, the evolution of ECOWAS. And of course, you realize that originally, when ECOWAS was set up, the original goal was economic cooperation in the field of economic activities, social and cultural cooperation in matters of social and cultural matters in general. And it was also to foster closer relationships among member states. And it was used certainly as a precursor towards a full-blown African Union, African integration. So ECOWAS was sort of a precursor to that. But with time, the cooperation, the scope of the cooperation has expanded to include promotion of human rights and good governance. Promotion of human rights and good governance. And these sort of new objectives, so to speak, have deepened the challenges affecting the union. So now people talk about, we are almost 50 years in May. So have we been able to achieve our objectives or not? That is the million-dollar question confronting every citizen of the union. Yes, some have argued forcefully that when it comes to the objectives of ECOWAS, in recent times, it looks as if our democratic credentials as a union has been challenged in the light of 3 member states, ceding from the union, in the light of coup d'etats in recent times. So people are tempted to say that the objectives of ECOWAS have failed. But then we need to remind ourselves that in spite of the challenges, we've had some achievements that we can be proud of. One of the central aims of the union is integration, free movement of goods and services. Of course, we have the free movement protocol that gives members of citizens of ECOWAS the right to visa-free movement, the right to residence, and the right to establishment across the regions. Yes, there is free movement of ECOWAS citizens. If you are an ECOWAS citizen, you can settle in another ECOWAS country. You need not apply for residency. You have the right to establish in that country. But of course, the movement is not that seamless. And it is this challenge that has motivated people to say that the objectives of ECOWAS has failed. The movement is not a smooth ride at all. Moving from Accra to Lagos, for instance, apart from the roadblocks, there are reported cases of extortion by custom officials on the way. Lots of challenges. The road network is not that great, among other challenges that you have to go through before you arrive at your destination. This is a challenge. Yes, it's a lofty idea on paper. You have the right to establishment. You can establish in any ECOWAS country of your choice. But when it comes to the establishment itself, for you to engage in trading activities, there are some restrictions. And one example comes to mind. In Ghana, the Ghana Investment Promotion Center Act, Section 27, makes provision such that some investment enterprises are reserved to Ghanaian citizens only. They are stated. Occasionally, they revise the list. So going strictly by that provision, it means if you are an ECOWAS citizen and you are not a Ghanaian, you cannot involve yourself in some trading activities, even though you have a right to settle. So the point is that there is no alignment between the ECOWAS protocols, the ECOWAS conventions and agreements, and that of domestic laws. And it prevails in many countries, not only in Ghana. Our leaders lack the political will to domesticate the ECOWAS legal framework into our domestic laws. Yes, they sign up to the treaty. They've signed up to the treaty. They sign up to the protocols, among other things. But then for them to incorporate, and let us not forget that most of the ECOWAS countries are dualist states. You may sign up to an international instrument, but it's not automatically binding on you unless it is ratified by parliament and it is domesticated before you can apply it domestically. So that has been our greatest challenge as a union, to domesticate the ECOWAS legal framework has been a challenge. So we have very fine protocols, agreements, even the treaty itself, among other legal framework, but enforcement of it has become a problem. So that is a key challenge that has tempted people to say that the whole ECOWAS project has failed. Yes, we can think of the role of ECOWAS in peace and security in the region. We can think of Liberia, what happened in Liberia. I believe it was in the late 80s or early 90s. That time we were very young, but that was a time when ECOWAS became very popular through the activities of ECOMOG. Yes, they were at the forefront in peacekeeping in Liberia, Sierra Leone, Cote d'Ivoire, and even the Gambia, what happened in 2016, and Guinea-Bissau. ECOWAS has played a key role in fostering peace and stability in those countries. And we can also think about the stabilization forces in Sierra Leone and Guinea-Bissau. They have helped, ECOWAS has helped stabilize those states. But then there are still challenges. It has not prevented coup d'etats. Recent events will attest to that. So what do we do as a union? There's been talk of a standby force. I think we can explore into that and see whether the standby force can help mitigate those threats of unconstitutional takeover of government, terrorist activities, which is on the increase lately, as well as the activities of insurgents. When it comes to promotion of human rights and good governance, ECOWAS has played a role. Okay, these objectives they are the latter day objectives. We had the ECOWAS protocol on democracy and good governance in 2001. And the aim of the 2001 protocol was to ensure that the constitutions of member states are aligned to some democratic ethos, the ethos of independent judiciary, the rule of law, a very progressive and vibrant parliament, free and fair elections, freedom of association, among other things. Yes, to an extent, we're able to achieve that. But then in recent times, recent events have shown that our democracy is quite dysfunctional in the light of the recent overthrown of governments in the Burkina Faso and many other countries. That is a challenge for ECOWAS. So when it comes to promotion of human rights and good governance, yes, we have made progress, but there are still challenges. The existence of the ECOWAS court, for instance, as an institution, has bolstered the ECOWAS promotion and protection of human rights credentials in the sub-region. Of course, the ECOWAS court is the champion of protection of human rights. they, as part of the mandate of the ECOWAS court, they hear many human rights cases across the sub-region. And you don't need to prove local standard capacity. The human rights violation should not affect you personally before you can go to the ECOWAS Court of Justice. So this has given way for NGOs and other groups to institute action at the ECOWAS Court. So that in itself is a step in the right direction. And talking about the ECOWAS Court to us an institution, you need not exhaust the domestic remedy before you are heard at the ECOWAS Court. When there is a human rights violation against you or against a group, you can go straight to the ECOWAS Court. So that has strengthened the human rights protection regime so far as the ECOWAS legal framework is concerned. And this has happened through the ECOWAS Court as an institution. So because of that, the ECOWAS Court has been touted, and rightly so, as the most successful human rights court, the most successful international court within the sub-region. And that in itself is an achievement for the ECOWAS project, the ECOWAS community as a whole. So yes, we have had our challenges relating to free movement of goods and services. I've talked about that. And challenges relating to mobility. There are many challenges on the way. Okay, border restrictions, despite the free movement protocol. Then one other challenge that we are facing, which if we're able to surmount that challenge, it will pave the way for full realization of our economic integration goal. And that is our desire to have a common currency in the ECO. There's been various challenges in some regions when it comes to the issue of macroeconomic instability, among other things, which is why we've not been able to adopt the common currency in the ECO. But I think it's something we should work around so that we can achieve it, because having a common currency for me holds the key to the realization of full and effective economic integration. So I will say that yes, the ECOWAS project, we cannot say it's been fully successful. It's been partially successful. But there are many, many, many challenges which we must surmount. We should not give up yet as a union. We should continue to push forward our agenda, the goals of ECOWAS. And before we can do so, it will depend on the political will of our leaders, the desire of the leaders to surrender part of the sovereignty and embrace the ECOWAS legal regime and incorporate same into our domestic laws so that we can move forward as a union. So I think going forward, and I think I will take the opportunity to end here for now. And I'm sure my 10 minutes is up.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So, yes, that's all to say at the moment with successes and our challenges and how to surmount those challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that beautiful the insight. I can see people raising their hands, but we'll go over to the question and answer session, and all the questions that you have will be attended to. Please. I know myself, I also have questions, but we'll just attend to all the questions during the question and answer session. Thank you very much. So I will be inviting the next person, Professor Paul Ejime, and I'll quickly go through his profile. He's a highly motivated, results-oriented British Chevening journalism, media, and communication scholar. Paul Ejime has more than 4 decades progressive professional experience with a proven track record. His areas of specialization include editorial content development, governance and corporate communication strategies, research, mentoring young professionals, and workshop seminar facilitation. A global affairs analyst and former war correspondent, Ejime has provided election operations, media and communication services to national and international organizations, including the ECOWAS Commission, ECOWAS Network of Electoral Commissions. Please, Michael, can you mute your microphone? Thank you. Ejime has provided election operations, media and communication services to national and international organizations, including ECOWAS Commission, ECOWAS Network of Electoral Commission, European Union, the World Health Organization, the German International Development Agency, the Swedish International Development Agency, and the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Nigeria. Ejime's professional career from 1983 includes working with the French wire service AFP, News Agency of Nigeria, Pan-African News Agency based in Dakar, and as news stranger for the BBC and Voice of Africa, VOA. He has also served as media and communication specialist to the ECOWAS Commission and the United Nations World Health Organization African Program for Onchocerciasis, that's liver blindness, based in Burkina Faso. As a pioneer senior advisor, communications and advocacy to ECONEC, Ejime published activities in support of credible elections in West Africa in 2017 to 2019, the first document on the activities of election management bodies in the region. He has facilitated regional trainings workshop on the role of the media in promoting peace and security and professional reporting of elections in West Africa, and produced a decade of ECOWAS electoral assistance in Africa between 2006 to 2016. Ejime developed the communication strategy and action plan for ECOWAS EU Peace and Security projects and implemented the project communications and visibility enhancement activities. He was among the 10 journalists embedded in the ECOWAS Ceasefire Monitoring Group, ECOMOG, during the civil wars in Liberia and Sierra Leone and the Nigeria-Cameroon-Bakassi conflict in 1994. In 2001, Ejime served as external evaluator for the implementation of projects transitional support to the ECOWAS Regional Radio, TSERR, and also developed the Sustainability Action Plan for the operationalization of the Liberia-based regional radio. As communication publication consultant to the ECOWAS Commission, Ejime edited the weekly Echoes of ECOWAS and led the conception and implementation of the communication plan for the ECOWAS Malaria Elimination Campaign and the regional response to the Ebola virus outbreak in 2014 to 2015. Ejime was the pioneer president, Association of Foreign Affairs Correspondents of Nigeria from 1989 to 1991. He has pitched numerous feature articles, OPEDS, and at various speaking and media platforms, changed narratives on topical issues, including his dedicated website, that should be www.pglobalmedia.com. Ejime served as EU resource person at the May 2004 Abuja Road to Schuman Forum, organized jointly by Nigeria's National Counterterrorism Center, and the European Delegation on Conflict Dynamics in West Africa, strengthening regional partnership. Ejime has also undertaken professional study tours, including the USIA-sponsored regional project, the US, on decision-making in US foreign policy in 1993. He was part of the Nigerian government's delegation that toured Commonwealth countries on the campaign that culminated in the election of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, of Chief Emeka Anyakogo as Africa's first Commonwealth Secretary at Jem 1989. Please, ladies and gentlemen, can we welcome Mr. Paul Ejime? Please, can we just, with a round of applause, clap emoji, welcome him? That was really a very beautiful profile and accomplishments, huge accomplishments. Thank you so much, sir, for joining our session today. You have the floor.
So I hope you can hear me. Okay,
very well.
Thank you very much, Esther. I can see that all this. I hope Professor Prof. Amos will not be asking for payment for this advert, because you spend so much time advertising me. And well, thank you very much for that. Paul Ejime is simply Mr. I'm not a professor, so please don't put me into trouble. Or before you also put Justice is my name. You see what you have done, making me speak after a professor has spoken, and then a justice of the law. I mean, in the courts, they say it's a temple of justice. You see, I want to be careful what I say. Otherwise, I would have just said, as the last speaker, I concur with the chairman. But having said that, I welcome Professor Chidi there, and then Justice Raymond Osei, Amos, and you there, and all the 36, I think we have 36 to almost 40 participants now. Without taking much time, you see, when the professor has given us the historical background, and then the justice also did justice in making it clear for people to understand what ECOWAS, because the beautiful thing about what you have done, your center, is that ECOWAS suffers this low level, knowledge, low knowledge, or knowledge deficiency amongst the more than 400 million citizens within the region, the community, and it's part of what has culminated in the performance, and the fact that the impact is probably not felt as much as it should. Having said that, one would say that ECOWAS has really evolved, unraveled more than 360% degree from when it started. When, if you recall, there were some countries that were being governed by the military dictators. So if you remember, we had there was Jerry Rawlings in Ghana, General Babangida in Nigeria, and so on and so forth. But for some magical reason, by act of omission of actually it was deliberate. The movement towards a multi-party system, all of them, until 2020, all of them could claim to be operating one democratic system or another. I hope that lesson is not lost on us. The 15. And then it was in 2020 that Colonel Assimi Goita and his colleagues decided to disrupt the party with his first coup, because he had to. He removed the Keita, who was elected. Keita was on his second term, Ibrahim Keita. And after that, Goita was the vice president in that government. Civilian was deliberately put there, but he couldn't really stand that. He decided to make it a real political, military government. So he toppled that government where he was the vice president. And now since then, for 5 years, he has now operated for unelected. And you will ask, what is the difference between when he took over and now? But that, let me also shock you that he has also come up with a new plan. He has self-promoted himself to general, the top rank in the army, and now he wants to continue for another 5 years. So maybe the region will have to endure his administration for 10 years, and then you'll be saying, where is the governance strategy architecture that ECOWAS is trying to put together, or where is human rights? Because you can't, it is said that the worst civilian government is even better than a benevolent military dictator or dictatorship. So human rights is, they have won, political party is gone, the constitution is gone, they are not even talking about election. So the same with his colleague in Niger, Chidi, Abdurrahman Chidi. Chidi, okay, let me pull back to say that after Goita, Guinea was the next, where the man there took over, and he's also going through his own transition program. And then followed by Burkina Faso, where you now have a captain who tell the world that he's Sankara reincarnate. But the jury is still out on that. Then Niger in 2023 completed the circle of the 4 countries where you have had the military junta toppling elected governments. Whether those elections were flawless or were credible is another matter. But like I told you, all 15 were under a form of civilian or democracy or democratic system before 2020. And that is the problem that ECOWAS is dealing with today. But why you need to diagnose this problem to be able to solve it? It is because I know that your survey is talking about what is it called? Unconstitutional change of government. But we have had not just only military coups. Military coups were just a symptom of the greater malaise that ECOWAS has suffered over the years. After the very brilliant and very laudable achievements that the justice has named some of them, Prof has named some of them, because in all areas, even though it was meant as economic, as an economic bloc, regional bloc, in 1993, with the revision of the treaty, and then along the line from 1999 and 2001, 2008, peace and security agenda was injected into the integration project, because it was then seen that even though it was an economic organization, it was bogged down for almost more than a decade by peace and security issues, starting with the 1989 civil war that broke out in Liberia, and then followed by Sierra Leone, and so on. And even in Cote d'Ivoire post-election crisis in 2010. So it was that in trying to, this conflict prevention, management and resolution, that ECOWAS caught its teeth in the way it handled the problem in Liberia and then Sierra Leone. Yeah. Because I can tell you for free that but for ECOWAS and ECOMOG that we were lucky to work with, and then that it worked effectively, you know, probably those words will still be there if you had left it with the UN. The UN does not have that credential of ending. They will send their, you know, peacekeeping forces. But we have seen what they have done. They are still in Cyprus since 1965, and in so many other places, even in Mali, where it had more than 14,000 strong people, they still could not help in solving the security or insecurity problem. And so Goita and co, they have asked them to leave along with the French military base, which is another matter of what we are seeing, the kind of Prof talked about how the historical context and then colonial you know, factors that fed into the formation of ECOWAS. France has always been there to relying on its former colonies, exploiting them and exploiting their resources to, you know, to further his own, to grow his own economy. In fact, when Professor Adedeji, Edem Kojo and others, or when General Gowan asked Adedeji to go, you know, cobble this, what we now see today as ECOWAS, there were resistance from, you know, some countries in the region that were beholden to France. In other words, France was using them to say, no, we don't want that kind of association. We wanted what they call French Afrique. That is a French West Africa or French Africa, you know. So, but to the credit of the founding fathers, they were able to weather that storm and even made some concessions. For instance, they had to send. Remember, in those days, you were traveling by ship. Nigeria had to arrange a special ship to go and fetch the Ivorian Ufebuanye. And then another concession was that an Ivorian became the first executive secretary of ECOWAS, who served from 1977 to, you know, I think he served for 4 or 5 years. So to tell you how the concession that was done. And that Treaty of Lagos of 28 May 1975 is, you know, Adedeji, God bless his soul, when we met him in his place in Ijabode, while recalling what he went through. He said that is one treaty that you can recollect that was signed by the majority of the the signatory countries, because they did their groundwork, their spade work, to make sure that everybody was at the table to sign. Well, starting, there were not 15 originally. I think Kweke joined later and so on. But from 16, like Prof said, in 2000, Mauritania left. But I can also tell you that Mauritania has been, you know, pressuring to rejoin. And then you will say that for those who are talking about the good side of ECOWAS, and not only Mauritania, Morocco and some other countries are even trying to join ECOWAS before this disruption by the 4 countries. So, but you will say that there is a good argument there that you cannot be hoping to go and join an association that is not doing well, except that perhaps in some countries you have politicians defecting from one place to the other. Let's leave that aside. So ECOWAS is being judged by its own with the standard of his own performance. Because to whom much is given, much is expected. ECOWAS has, of the 8 regional economic communities, they call them RECs. You have the Maghreb, you have the Central African, you have the East African, you have, all of them. Of the 8, ECOWAS can, even in this difficult situation, ECOWAS is the only one that was widely internationally acclaimed as, being a trailblazer. But it had, everything requires, even gold requires shining. Everything requires improvement. ECOWAS cannot be hanging on to that past glory. Things have changed in the world. There has been some, mighty work in geopolitical shift, and then with some threats about terrorism, which wasn't there, were widely spread when ECOWAS was formed. You have violent extremism. You have all manner of armed groups that are now, and multilateralism is no longer as effective. What happens is that, like in the Cold War period, where the West and the East, Europe were fighting, when the West supported a particular, even when they were not a democracy, even dictatorship, they will support so long as it's opposed to the other side. What has happened is that anybody that does anything now will find a friend, unlike when in the past, so many countries will come together and then, bring pressure to bear on such a country to do the right thing. Today, the 4 countries, no, not 4, the 3 that have moved from ECOWAS to, Sahel, AES, the Sahel, what do they call them? Alliance of Sahel states, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. They are saying they are cutting ties with France because of the massive anti-French sentiment, which they didn't start. It was the citizens that are now resisting this. But because each time the citizens try to put up a movement, the government will always put them down. But they cannot do so to the military because they have, weapons. So the military, as it were, these 4 countries, apparently have hijacked, because they are all former French colony, by the way, government, So they have hijacked that and think they can run with it, on the crest of anti-French sentiments. But it may probably will not last because the honeymoon already is over. If it's not taking seizing power that is the issue, what do you do with the power? And we have seen it before. Deja vu. We have seen transition, programs that lasted even up to 8 years. You're always going to come back to square one because the question will be asked, what have you done? And then whoever takes over after the transition will now have a job of work to be able to clean what the mess that has been caused. So you can now see that military coup or military regime is not the solution. It's an aberration. Just as civilian coups, and let me dwell on that because that is one problem that ECOWAS has today, that it has allowed, instead of the ECOWAS of state, and the ECOWAS of the people that the Treaty of 1993 talked about, ECOWAS is still functioning like the ECOWAS of state or ECOWAS of heads of state, because it's the heads of state that are running the show. They are now carrying out civilian coups. They are changing constitutions, what is it called? Unconstitutional change of government. They are changing their constitution to remain in power or to gain power. They are rigging elections to remain in power or to gain power. They are, violating human rights and so on and so forth. And it is that, you remember the third term syndrome. starting with, and that is where the rain actually started beating ECOWAS. It was from around 2000, you know, some 20 years or so ago. For instance, when the president of Cote d'Ivoire, Alassane Ouattara, decided to change the constitution in 2016 to allow him now he has done 3 terms and he wants to go for a 4th term. Other people in Guinea, Alpha Conde tried it, and that was, you know, they threw him out. Burkina Faso, there was a man, I saw his picture recently, and you know, a few days ago, and I couldn't recognize him. Blaise Compaoré, who removed, you know, his friend Sankara in 1987, and since then had been ruling until 2014, when the people of Burkina Faso said no. They marched out in their number on the street, and then he ran away. He's now maybe in the Cote d'Ivoire. Okay, so that is and so on and so forth. In Niger, the same thing. People, they sit tight or they rig elections, and in the process, they have failed to govern. There is no governance. It's not government, but governance. Governance will provide all the elements of, you know, social security, economic development, employment, education, and so on and so forth. But these leaders, these leaders that we have now, this crop of leaders are not providing that, but they are not allowing that. And then all we have now is a group of leaders who go to a meeting at their summit, and then try now to you know, make sure that they don't have the courage to tell themselves the truth. They are not, peer review is not, they talk about it, but it's not there. Because if your colleague is doing something you consider wrong or violating the regional protocol, you have to tell them. And that is the problem that the ECOWAS has. Because, okay, there is a difference between there is ECOWAS Commission and then all the other ECOWAS institutions. The Commission is supposed to be coordinating activities of ECOWAS. And that is where Prof was talking about the Commission maybe going to the court. But you wonder, from the, you know, rapidity and the venom with these 3 countries we are going about it, I don't think they will even answer anybody who goes to the ECOWAS court, because they say they don't want to have anything to do with ECOWAS. And that is where I think they are also making a mistake. They cannot afford to isolate themselves and then remain there. They are leaving France and embracing, it's like removing the chain on your legs and then putting it on your neck. You are still in chain. You know, granted, yes, ECOWAS has this problem that I have mentioned, the causes of military coup, or the fact that it's no longer as effective as it used to be. It is because of leadership deficiency, you know, because the leaders are no longer doing what, after all, ECOWAS has handled so many coups before. There have been coups this is not the first coup in Niger. It is not the first coup even in Mali or any other country. But ECOWAS, for whatever reason, decided not to apply some of those instruments or protocols that it had used to quench those fires. Instead, they were not thinking of going to invade Niger. And that was where the problem, complicating the problem instead of finding a solution. And I think that is where the problem, the mistake that they made. You talked about missed opportunities. Whether or not you could convince these people to, without taking them to court and they are not interested in obeying any civil authority. They cannot. I don't think they will answer you if you summon them to the ECOWAS court, which is in Abuja. In Abuja, where they think that the leadership there is causing with the France that they are not, that they are trying to despise. So these are it's complicated, and at times it's very easy. It requires just being innovative and reinventing yourself to address emerging problems in a more strategic way, to know that it is no longer the ECOWAS of 1975, but let's give it to the organization. So many regional, even the EU, you can see that they are struggling. Many have many regional organizations have come up, but have also disappeared, even as soon as they come. But ECOWAS is still trudging on. I think it has to be supported with some tweaking here and there to make sure that the citizens, in particular, feel the impact of the organization, because that is what it is. It should be an ECOWAS of the citizens, ECOWAS of people, not ECOWAS of state or ECOWAS of heads of state. I don't know. Do I still have time in my 10 minutes, Prof? or Esther? Where am I?
You've exhausted the 10 minutes, sir.
Oh, I have. Oh, okay. All right.
There will be time for you to talk more.
Yes. Pardon me, because you caused a problem by putting me between a professor and then a judge. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that insightful session. I also believe a lot of persons have questions, and I would want to encourage, if you have any question, you can drop it in the chat box. We'll be moving over to the panel session, and during the panel session, we'll be able to attend to all the questions. Okay, I'll be yielding the floor to my colleague, Michael, who will be handling the